say that it's all one and we're all God. Well, ain't it strange to see that kind of God working so hard? Well, if you were the master and the world was your drawing board, how could you be an illusion? Illusion must be your Lord. Kill a bunch of people. So he'd just go wherever there was a war and kill a bunch of people. He didn't care. Then he heard there was a war across this great mountain range. He started going across the mountain range, and he saw this Buddhist monk approaching him through this great field, this plain up on a high plateau, and he's thinking, God, I've killed so many people, and I've always had this question in my head, is there a heaven or hell? You know, he's worried about his karma. He thinks a little bit like that, just enough to think, wow, this person will know the answer. If I ask him, he'll probably tell me the answer. So just where they're about to pass the little Buddhist monk, with his stick, he's walking just real gently along the path. And the warrior says, Buddhist monk, it's a true story, says, hey, is there a heaven or hell? See, the Buddhist monk's been praying, like, Buddha, guide my words. I don't get to meet people that much and help people. This guy looks like he needs help. You can see him from a distance. He's a really bad dude. He said, who are you? And the warrior's like, what? Who are you? I'm a warrior. I kill people. You don't look like you could hurt a fly. What are you talking about? I killed hundreds of men with this sword and these knives. Hundreds with each knife. I've killed so many people. No one can touch me. I'm so good at killing people. And he's like, you could even cut butter with that knife. You're such a weakling. What a wuss. You just go try to fool someone else. I don't believe you're any kind of warrior. He just kept insulting him until he got angry. His red blood boiling, and his right arm was filled with wrath, and he grabbed his sword, and he lifted the guy up, and he puts it up to his throat. He says, I could slash your head off right now. And the Buddhist old monk looked down with him in great compassion and said, now you're in hell. He answered the question. And then the way he looked at him with compassion, he said, this guy risked his life for him. His heart shattered, all that hardness, and he started crying and sobbing, and he shed his weapons and armor, and he fell to the ground. He's like on his knees looking up at the Buddha's monk. I don't want to kill anymore. Please teach me the way back to sanity and peace and being a good person. And so he looked down at him very gently and said, now the gates of heaven are open to you. Every moment is a symbol of eternity. So let's see. What we do with it makes it spiritual or material. People in the class ask this question, why is there Maya? Maya means illusion. Maya means that which is not. It's a mistake, It's like if you look at a rope and you glance at it real quick and you think it's a snake and you jump. So we take something for what it's not. We also take this material body to be ourself. You look in the mirror, we were talking about this earlier. If you think that that's you in the mirror, then you're in Maya or illusion. And the word charisma comes from the word Krishna. It means all attractive. One time Krishna just moved his eyebrow and everyone fainted. 10,000 people fainted. And so there's no comparing the beauty of the divine couple. That the body, in fact, does hardly exist. Such knowledge is gained by those who persist. The force that pervades this body is spirit. The body will perish, but not the soul in it. The soul is primeval, eternal, unstained. It's not hurt, even if the body is slain. Enlightened people know that the soul cannot die. It can never be killed or kill others, say I. Vishnu is speaking as Krishna here, God incarnate. And then it says, just as old clothing is replaced by the new, the soul gets new bodies to enter into. Whoever's reborn must once again die. Even so, my dear friend, there's no need to cry. He's speaking to Arjuna. He says, the birth and death cycle turns just like a wheel, so live as a spirit and fight on with zeal. So find out that you're a spirit and do things that spirits do, and do it with gusto. We have activities that jumpstart the soul to its three qualities of eternity, enlightenment, and bliss. And we give up the three opposites of temporality, anxiety, and ignorance. It's interesting. This verse has two sides to it. It talks about the great sages and how they're controlling the mind and senses, and they're conquering the mind and senses, and they engage in mystic yoga. Then they attain to this place. It's called Brahman realization. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Sabdyate. First level of realization is called Brahman, which is the light or the oneness or the feeling of oneness. It's not actual oneness. That's where people get a little confused, because when they get to the basic, they rise above time and they go into the light. So they're in eternal time and in light, and there's Vaikuntha, there's absence of anxieties. And they mistake that to be the supreme bliss, the supreme love, awakening of love. And the awakening of love is a totally different elevated state. It's in the highest state. This state is just impersonal. It's impersonal Brahman. It's like being in a room full of light, and there's no bliss, and you just stay there forever, and they do. They're particles of living entities that are like us. They're called jivas, and they're like particles of light, and they become fixed in the sky of the spiritual world. But on the spiritual planets in the spiritual world, you have intense, wonderful pastimes. I mean, we just looked at the divine couple. They never look older than 16. They are very much Nava Yovana, the ever-fresh youth, and they're playing in forests. And so that's what's going on in the spiritual world, and that's what we like to do ultimately. And that's why we go to the sinkholes, and why we go ride our bicycles in the woods and have fun in life, because we ultimately want to do it eternally and be up in the spiritual sky, in the spiritual planets, rather, doing that. The W question is pretty profound. Why? Why? Why do you turn on the light? Someone tries to answer that question. Well, when the switch goes up, there's electric current that's transferred to the alternating wire in the alternating current, and it goes. No, you're describing how. I can say, well, how did you get here? Oh, because I wanted to. I really thought it would be nice to come hear about the mystical India. Okay. No, you're answering why, not how. And so sometimes scientists especially try to merge these two questions of how and why. And this is one of the conundrums. The light switch is a good analogy. Why did you turn on the light? Because I wanted to. You know, there's a person behind the action that has a personal reason. And so there's a supreme being behind the whole universe that has a reason for this illusion to be here. Why is there illusion? Why is there Maya? There's the three energies, the superior energy, which is God, the marginal energy, which is the living entities. You know, God is like the sun, and the sun cannot fall beneath the clouds. The sun is the source of the clouds, evaporation, dispersion, you know, and we're the living entity. We can get under the clouds and be covered by this illusion. Okay, so there's superior energy, the marginal, that's the little children of God, infinitesimal individual souls. And then underneath that is the inferior energy. The inferior energy of God is dull matter. You take a rock and you break it with a hammer, it doesn't complain, it doesn't criticize, it doesn't feel any pain, because it's just matter. And guess what? Our whole soul is covered with a bunch of that stuff. You know, there's a reason for Maya, and the reason is, you know, part of the will of God, which is achintya. Achintya means inconceivable. And it's inconceivable, especially when we're under the illusion. When we're under the illusion, you know, we're forgetful living entities. We're forgetful. We're forgetful that we are a child of God, that we're eternal servants of God and Goddess. We are forgetful. And we're covered with all these things: envy, pride, anger, greed, lust, illusion. You know, these anarthas are covering our heart with matter, covering our soul. We accept all of these unwanted things. They're called anarthas, and we got to get them off. We want to do the will of the divine. We want to become one with God. We can't become absolutely one with God. That's a false philosophy. There's illusion because we have free will, and we chose to be here. We chose to be covered by illusion, and it's all resting on our desire. You say that it's all one, and we're all God. Well, ain't it strange to see that kind of God working so hard? Well, if you were the master and the world was your drawing board, how could you be an illusion? Illusion must be your Lord.